All the movie? Oh, okay, but so it was through the medium of the movie. Okay, not quite fiction, but yeah. And who else? Yeah, but we know that's because you have no imagination. That's okay. I know Dave, so that's all right. So for me, I really think that the medium of science fiction is a great method to expose people to the idea of, space exploration and technology. I mean, the same way that, I find that I've been inspired, and most of the people here, I think, have been inspired. And so I wanted to do was have kind of a discussion with folks about what it is that they find inspiring, say, in current science fiction or in the past that they think is really useful or, could be kind of a good medium to bring other folks into the fold. Because I think the end goal, right, of all of us here at Space Up in getting together like this is not just, as, some people may use the term mutual masturbation. Oh, we all love space. That's so great. What's the big deal? We want more people to love space as much as we do so that things like NASA's budget getting cut and, the lack of a shuttle, the lack of proper space exploration is actually more of a problem. That more people in the public domain actually go, they're not going to stand for this, right? Because if it was up to us, forget it, right? We know what we'd be doing right now. But the problem is the general public doesn't feel that way, right? And I think one of the ways, I'm not talking about some great public outreach or, anything else like that, but kind of using common culture and the, cultural medium. So I'm curious, let me just see from some folks here, like what is it that you guys have found most inspiring, say, in the medium of science fiction and you think would be, good to bring people in, either books or movies or, TV shows, et cetera. And of course, Alex, go ahead.
The first thing is that it shows you all the ways that we need space for energy, for security, for communication, for, as a subset, location information. But secondly, we see how all the three things, space migration, intelligence increase, and life extension, are all interrelated. And I wouldn't have known about those connections, which are very clear, if I hadn't read 1,000 stories of science fiction and sort of pieced it together like Sherlock Holmes. Two or three. Well, sure. I would say the Hyperion and Endymion, basically the Hyperion cantos. I have yet to recommend that to someone without having them come back and grab me and say, "Oh my God, that was so fucking good! It was amazing." The second thing I would say is the books by Peter Hamilton, like the Fallen Dragon, which it's sort of a wish fulfillment thing, but shows space and time together. And I also think that, there's a book of space opera stories. You wanted series. Okay. David Brin's Uplift series. And then if I had to go one more, I would say the most transformative series I've ever read in my life is the Foundation series, where if you count the robot novels and the Foundation books and the three by the Killer Bees, that's 13 books. But after you've gone through 2,500 pages, it's like you live from the zeroth law.
And actually, I guess I should add. So for me, I've read tons of books, sci-fi, movies and stuff. And so a lot of what, Alex has mentioned, Asimov, and you've got all your kind of sci-fi authors, Greg Bear, Benford Bryn. And then one that stuck in my head recently, Werner Vinge, if you guys haven't read anything by him. Deepness in the Sky, Fire Upon the Deep were really kind of amazing books. And in case you guys haven't heard, I've self-described myself as a futurist, as do a lot of people here. And a book that I thought that was really interesting by him that was kind of more of a near future kind of book, but really interesting, is Rainbow's End, which is an adaptation of a short story that he wrote. It's kind of about wearable technology and kind of near future stuff, not necessarily space, but obviously leading to that. And, as you can guess, I find shows like, Star Trek very inspiring. Babylon 5, if you guys haven't seen those, things like that. And then obviously, movies that come out, though, some stuff. I don't know if I would call Star Wars science fiction. I would honestly call it more fantasy, right? Or space opera. There's a big argument we can have there, but I like stuff that have a little more of the science aspect of it, which is also why I'm a big fan of, for example, the Stargate series, right, which tries to deal with kind of like how humans would explore space. So, Dave, you had a comment? Yep. All right. Yep. Yeah, there's an interesting class. If you look, I think from what I've seen, sci-fi authors usually were kind of doing this sort of far future, like galactic spanning civilization stuff that may or may not happen. There's been a sort of a recent trend in authors to kind of do more kind of near future stuff, whether it's space or not, where it's kind of like, let's just extrapolate 10, 20, 30 years in the future or so and try and control the variables, because after longer amounts of time it's impossible to almost predict. And so you've got authors where civilization looks mostly like it does today, but they've advanced a few things forward. Like Charles Stross has some very interesting books that he's written. He's a very good science fiction author, so if you want to check out someone that may be a little more accessible, he's got some stuff. And I see someone writing down notes, which is great, because the idea here is to Accelerando. The idea here is just let's all exchange information, and then give each other recommendations and hopefully go out and maybe inspire other people too. Yeah. Okay. StarCraft. Yep. Oh, yeah. What about StarCraft or Halo? Mm-hmm. Yep. No, exactly. Go ahead. Yeah. Yep. Very cool. So I had a interesting question for you guys, and I'm kind of curious about this, but how many people here think that an alien invasion could be actually the best thing that happens to the planet? I'm curious. Show of hands. How many people think it would be bad? Okay, of course. But for the people who could think it'd be good, what was the reason you raised your hand for that? Yep. History has proven that. Yeah. Any other reason? What's that? I was going to say, yeah, I mean, a common theme you'll see through any alien invasion story, and this is true if you look at it historically in terms of human society, is it's always about having someone else that's more different than the people you're with. Right. I mean, that's where current divisions come from. First, little social groups, and then, eventually big political entities, and now countries, racial, ethnic groups. But when an alien comes down and starts killing you, all of a sudden, that other human being that looked really different to you looks a whole lot more similar than this crazy alien bastard, right, who's like bombing and shooting you, right? So from that standpoint, it's always been an interesting theme to me that, when you read and see like Falling Skies, this new series on, TNT that you see now, it's, the aliens have come and all of a sudden we're united in the brotherhood of humanity. Now, of course, if we get our asses kicked by the aliens, it doesn't matter because then we're going to be extinct. But hey, there could be a bright side to the dark cloud, right? Oh, yes, exactly. No, and I mean, that's the question, right? Do we actually figure out that we need to stop doing that, or are we going to be stupid and, basically hasten our own extinction? Yep. Josh? That's he was asking, do we need to develop counters to the infected blankets of the aliens, likening the alien invasion to the invasion of the Europeans of the New World, right? Spreading smallpox and all that. Right. Yeah. I threw that out as kind of an interesting thought. I mean, I think that the other interesting aspect of sci-fi is that, though in the past it seems it had kind of been denigrated a little. It used to be when I was a kid and I was reading sci-fi, it's like, oh, you're reading sci-fi, like it's not real literature, right? There's definitely very good works of science fiction, and nowadays as technology has become more advanced, it seems as if there's less of that. I mean, it's kind of part of that futurist aspect that I talk about. The rate of accelerating change is just getting so great. Everyone kind of needs to get up with technology, right? You've got your mobile phones, you've got your internet, wireless access everywhere. What did we do before Google, right? And then the idea is that as, sci-fi, I think, can help sort of broaden people's horizons, right? That, you start thinking about things that you never would have considered before. And that's the beauty of science fiction. And like I said, I am, preferential more to the science fiction that's more based in science, right? So that's where, sorry, you had a comment? Yeah, just that is more based in science, because then there's at least some more, relevant kind of lessons I think we can learn from that. I mean, for example, just one thought that was in my head is talking about kind of, extrapolating out differences. There was a really good series, it doesn't have anything to do with space, but we're talking about sci-fi, by Nancy Kress called The Sleepless. And it was actually a very interesting series because it dealt with what would happen if we engineered the need for sleep out of people. And just think about that. Like, it would completely overthrow the way current society works, because there would be some people who would not need sleep. So imagine how much more productive they would be, how much more fulfilled they will be. And then there would be people who didn't. And then what would happen then as a result? And of course, there's never going to be, like, if you imagine that in 10 years in the future, one variable change such that that's the only thing that's different, versus today. So it's hard to tell how it'll all come around. But, it's sort of thought experiments like that, counterfactuals like that's the reason I love science fiction. So, but yeah, you had a comment?
No, before when you were asking, I just wanted to throw out that I think Robert J. Sawyer is really fantastic. He really takes kind of modern day technology and makes more with it. I'm really defining himself as a futurist, but I really enjoy everything.
It's interesting. I actually haven't read them, and I've read a lot of folks.
He's a Canadian author, and the TV series Flash Forward basically based on him.
Oh.
It's quite a bit different than the book.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I liked it too for as long as it lasted.
yeah, and I mean it's interesting, and it's that similar concept that's really based in science community, but it's really interesting.
Interesting.
He works closely with scientists and does a lot of research behind it.
I'll have to check that out. Alex?
I wanted to mention, just like your immune system learns, like your adaptive immune system, people are getting more and more allergic to bad science. So, for instance, one of the 10 biggest bombs of all time was Mars needs moms. Because we know there's no humanoid life on Mars. We used to be able to get away with that as a fraud because we weren't sure. But now we know that it's not true. Almost no one went and saw it. I think it was 6 million the first weekend, mostly at IMAX, because some people like everything IMAX. They're IMAX completists. But other than those people, there weren't anyone who wanted to see it. So what happens is that the market for non-science-based science fiction, I think, is completely drying up.
Interesting. So, anyone else seen that? Seeing that? I hadn't known about that, about the movie. And I remember seeing the preview and I was like, I'm not going to go see that. Oh. Yeah, there's going to be one of those for all of them. So, any other inspiring, science fiction books, authors, movies, topics, anything? Oh, yeah. Movie, that's definitely one of the best. Has everyone here seen it? Who's seen it? Raise your hands. Okay, who hasn't seen it? Raise your hands. District 9? You? No imagination. See? Proves it. So District 9 is an incredible movie that was made 2-3 years ago, was it? It's by Peter Jackson, the guy, who directed Lord of the Rings, and he'd been working on it for a while, and it's about... Sorry. He produced it. Direct, produce. Same thing. Yeah, and the point is, it is an incredibly good movie, ignoring any of the sort of science fiction-y aspects of it, but on top of it, there's, aliens, and they come to the planet, and stuff happens, and the thing about it that blew my mind is it's one of the most well-written movies because it took a character in the beginning that I absolutely despised. I literally wanted to kill him and made him one of the most, like, lovable people, and it was just an amazing transition and incredible writing, and you should definitely go out and see it. It's very, very good.
Just have one more thing I'd like to say with this, that I think that because the United States just got its credit downgraded, that we're all of a sudden going to have to go, oh, what's our core competency? What are we good at? And I would put forth an argument, I'd love anyone to argue with it, that the one thing that the United States is better at than any other nation, because you can say, well, we're good at this or that, and you can find someone on a per capita basis who's there.
Marketing culture?
No. Creating and commercializing science fiction worlds.
Science
If you
fiction
look
worlds.
at the top 300 grossing movies of all time, over 95% of them are American-made science fiction movies. If you count the full realization of special effects in there as well, like to drive the movie forward. So,
You mean comic book movies included, or
pardon me?
comic book movies and all of that kind of stuff?
Of course,
Yep.
Iron Man, the Hulk, Spider-Man, X-Men. I mean, it's an astonishing percentage of the top 300 movies of all time. There's nothing like it. So I would contend that is our special ability. That is our uniqueness.
Go ahead.
One of the things that aggravates me, though, it's sort of surprising, given that most men I agree with my similar thing, is that I feel like there's also this fear in the way that those properties are marketed. So, like, for example, I went to a panel that they did on Falling Skies, and every time someone said something like, oh, this is about science fiction, they'd be like, well, actually, it's a human story. And, like, they were really trying to kind of
Yep.
rebrand you to not, and I'm like, science fiction does not have to be, like,
The stigma associated with the term science fiction. Twilight Zone.
yeah, but they really talk about things in that, like, oh, but really it's this human story of a girl, and you're like, come on,
Well, actually, I'm curious. So, how many people think there is still some sort of stigma associated with the idea of science fiction? How many people are fine, telling other normals, folks who aren't here, who won't understand? Oh, you read science fiction, or I like sci-fi. Mundanes, normals, muggles. We can use all these terms interchangeably. But so Alex, I believe, thinks he has an explanation for this. Go ahead.
Yes, in 1914, H.G. Wells was very famous, and he managed to get into two different disputes, one with Henry James, the guy who was the most famous literary figure in the world. And Henry James basically said, if you're reading this stuff, you're not a serious literate person, you're not an intellectual. And he also got into a fight with J.P. Morgan, then the head of the business community, who basically said, if you're reading this, you're not a serious business person. And so we're still living with the ripples of all that because of his H.G. Wells thinking he could take on fights and not have people just go back and try and burn out his base of support.
So in the last couple minutes, what do people think might be some ways or strategies? I mean, it's interesting, too, because, say, for example, we talk about science fiction. I mean, I'm just thinking and noticing it's really interesting, for example, taking a very small subgroup, comic books, right? If anything, comic books are more marginalized, right, than, say, sci-fi is, right? It's like, who reads comic books still? But if you think about it, some of the top grossing movies of all time nowadays, and, currently, how many comic book movies are out, it's very interesting to me because it's like, people will go see these movies, but at the same time, it's like, well, oh no, I don't read comic books, but I'll go watch Iron Man, that kind of thing. So it's interesting. So out of curiosity, what do people think are some strategies for maybe helping with the science fiction stigma, if there is any? I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts?
I guess thinking back to high school, the books that we're reading are here in Brave the World.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you have a comment?
Never made a movie out of creating land. He raised on Mars. What he knows how to do.
I thought they'd been talking about it, but then there's always talks in Hollywood about making everything and anything and whether it happens or not.
Then the Church of Scientology sues.
Oh, let's not mention that name in here, please. Anyone else? Any thoughts? Comments? I think we've pretty much come... go ahead.
I think one of the best things that's come from sci-fi is that almost all the ideas from sci-fi, you want to build those nowadays. And a lot of the technology we have is very limited.
Yep, yep. What else?
Well, I know that Thanksgiving, they're having Lost Cause 3, done by the Los Angeles Science Fiction Society. And they've chosen their title this year to be Where's My Flying Car? And not only are they going to address fiction, and their guest of honor, the shuttle astronaut and test pilot for export, going to be out there talking about everything from the ideas of flying cars, up to fuel burn, all the way to space. That's the science fiction based audience.
All right, and one more. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, on what you're saying, that I've heard a few different people who work for NASA about that they almost always inadvertently end up saying, when you sort of say, what was your inspiration? It's like, okay, look at stars and Star Trek.
Exactly.
I love that cross-feeding between science and science fiction, that like science fiction can teach you when you're younger how to dream about what else could be out there, and then apply your own skills.
Amen.
Real.
And I will leave you guys with one last thing.
10 years after the Earth-bombarding war, the Babylon Project was a clean human core. Its goal, to prevent another war by creating a place where humans and aliens could work out their differences peacefully. It's a port of call, home away from home for diplomats, hustlers, entrepreneurs, and wanderers. Humans and aliens wrapped in 2,500,000 tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. It can be a dangerous place, but it's our last best hope
For peace.
This is the story of the last of the Babylon stations. The year is 2258. The name of the place is Babylon 5.
So, just leaving you guys with, I opened with Star Trek: The Next Generation, closing with Babylon 5. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely watch it. Great, great show. Thank you very much for coming, guys. Appreciate it.